I understand, reading back a bit, you mentioned wanting to turn agriculture into a mega industry.
Correct.
I'd like to go into more detail about that. I mean, everybody's talked about agriculture,
Correct.
wanting to push it forward, pero parang all these years, all these decades, hindi talaga umuusad.
Correct. Siguro it helps if we look back at the development of the policy, no? If you go way back to the monetary policies that were pursued way back from Capagal's time, you know. And in fact, let me even dial back even further. There's an article in Foreign Affairs magazine, 1951 issue, my golly, you know, and it said how we failed the Philippines. There's an American writer who actually admitted that they failed the Philippines. Why? Because the system of education they imposed upon us or gave us was not really fitted for us. Why? Because it was really meant for an industrial era America. And they actually said we should have taught the Filipinos better and more productive agriculture. So it's always been there. It's always been there. But because of, the economic managers, I think from way back, have been persuaded by, let's say, the bigger financial institutions to pursue more neoliberal policies. So ganun talaga ang nangyari. Hindi talaga, not only benign neglect, pero talaga neglect ang agriculture. And now it's turning out that, you know, we should be really focusing on agri. In fact, especially now, considering certain happenings in Europe, you know, more and more, dapat we should be more conscious of being food secure and, resource secure.
What's your take on agrarian reform?
I think we should condone the debts. You know, just give the property to them, and then just as long as they also commit na, you know, to pursue agriculture, hindi nila ibebenta.
Not to sell it.
You know, kasi ibinebenta. Ang laki kaya ng benta nila.
Yeah.
2 hectares. I just heard. We were in Isabela, somewhere in Nueva Vizcaya. 13 million. I mean, you know, this way back in the Boondocks, you know, is selling a certain piece of property for 13 million. Yun ang nakakatakot. Kung ibinenta na lahat sa subdivision, ano mangyayari sa sa agri natin.
Pero so, di ba in the law rin, you're not supposed to sell for a certain period?
Well, until you get the yung actual title and stuff like that. But anyway, ganun nga. So kung pwede, concentrate natin on agriculture. And we should pursue. I would pursue it for certain things. Number one, for food security, of course.
Yeah.
But second, also so that we can have more rural income, and also that we can have an honest-to-goodness industry. You know, where we can raise.
Yeah, but people are saying, you know, when it comes to industrializing agriculture,
Yes.
one problem is having the scale of
Correct.
the land that you do. How do you deal with the current distribution regime? Where all the land is parceled out in very, very small. When you look at how it was parceled out 30 years ago,
Correct.
to entire maybe 1.5 generations now, pinarcel out pa within family.
Correct.
So how do you industrialize?
Well, one of the things we're planning on doing is establish a board of agricultural investments under the office of the president that would take care of the business side, where the Department of Agriculture would take care of the technical side. We would have the BOAI, Board of Agricultural Investments, to be able to pursue these things. For example, exactly to address questions like yours. Na paano natin gagawin yan? Paliit na paliit yung mga parcels. Maybe so they can recommend, for example, scaling up, let's say, either by associations or by cooperatives or by either. Actually, what you could have is a hybrid or whole menu of either large industrial scale all the way down to micro artisanal.
You have experience with cooperatives. Why do many cooperatives fail, and why do some cooperatives succeed?
Well, I think from where I'm coming from, one, it's getting too complicated, I think. It's just getting too complicated. And then also it all depends on what you mean by success. You know, there are certain huge cooperatives, let's say, that we've seen in Davao, and they're able to give. Alam mo yung pag namatay, tapos you get something from that, and they're considered very successful. Why? Because they're able to give you 300,000 for when somebody dies. You know, that is a huge amount of money. I mean, pretty sizable. So that could be considered a success. But I would consider a success something like Santander in Spain, where they actually run
Their own corporation.
oh yeah, my God, I've seen that, nakakaingit, hindi ba? When they run yung electric companies, they run hotels, they run this and that. I suppose it really needs, number one, is competence, vision first. First, dapat may pananaw. And second, again, I think the quality of leadership affects the way an institution is built.
But again, that begs the question: how do we fuel our economy? How do we fuel that? I mean, and I literally, what's the energy mix?
Well, I would put it this way. No? I would say that, for example, we could get, let's say, 1% of GDP, and let's say that would be 150 billion. And so we could start with that. We could start with that and then put it and then really begin to invest it in, a mix of ayuda, a mix of subsidies, and of course, a mix of paluwal. Now, paluwal through banks. The government could actually provide a certain amount of equity, could assure certain amount of equity so that they could have access. And of course, mentoring. Joey Concepcion does a great job of mentoring all these. Let's treat it entrepreneurially. Hindi lang because my looking back at my years in government, I see that many government technocrats tend to be so involved in throughput, no? Ganito, the entire process seems to be very fascinating. But as with an entrepreneurial background, you need to see that kailangan talaga may kita. Ano ba yung kita natin? Dapat yung tao busog, dapat yung planeta hindi nasisira, and then dapat may kita naman talaga para may plowback. There's a pang-apat purpose. Now, let me just explain what I understand purpose. The purpose of a nation is to survive. If we keep going down this other path, hindi natin pinapansin, for example, na dapat matulungan yung may hirap. For example, yung mga gutom, yung 12.5 million people, dapat maiangat yan. Alam mo, pag hindi mo inaantabayanan yan, baka may mangyari.
Papa,